FOMO.
My name's Patrick McGinnis, and I'll admit it, I have FOMO. And since you're here, I'm going to bet that you do too. But that doesn't have to be a bad thing. If you learn to channel your FOMO productively, you can make the most of every opportunity while keeping your sanity in the process. This is FOMO Sapiens After Hours, the snackable show about how you can make FOMO a force for good. It is Monday, which means it's time for After Hours. And today I want to talk about something that if you follow me on Instagram, Patrick J. McGinnis, if you haven't seen it, go check it out. You will notice that we've been talking about a concept, kind of the word of the year, which is momentum. And I want to talk about why that is, because I thought a lot about every year I try to come up with something I want to focus on. And as you know, I don't like New Year's resolutions. So I try to come up with a high level concept. I'm not good at the details. High level concept that I can focus on throughout the year. And this year I went back to an oldie but goodie, which is momentum. Now, as I was thinking about that, it reminded me of something that I lived through that has been meaningful to me and why momentum is so important, because I've always been somebody who believes in momentum. I was always somebody I run out the door every morning. I am constantly in movement. I'm a very energetic person. And so moving forward, feeling momentum, feeling like I'm getting somewhere in life is something that's really important to me. And when I don't have momentum, I don't feel very good. And I think a lot of us can relate to that feeling of being stuck, which we've all been feeling this year. It just feels like your life is going nowhere. And so regaining momentum is so critical to what everybody's going to be doing this year as we sort of start to resume life. Now, when it comes to regaining momentum, this is not my first time around the block. Back in 2008, as some of you know, I was working on Wall Street. The financial crisis came. My company blew up, AIG. My stock fell 97%. Basically, we just waited for somebody to buy our division or something. We didn't know what was going to happen. So we were stuck. From 2008 to about 2010, our division was in a process of basically being sold. And so we couldn't do all that much. We tried to do our jobs, but it was just hard because there was so much uncertainty. And so I remember just feeling stuck and stagnant, and I didn't take it well at all. And I ended up eventually leaving that job and then trying to start my own thing and get going. But it wasn't happening. It just wasn't happening. I was trying everything. I just hadn't found my mojo yet. And so I felt lost and stuck, and I felt like I didn't have much momentum. And in fact, that's around the time that I started for the first time actually doing any yoga and meditation kind of stuff. And I had never really thought of myself as that kind of person, but I had taken a little time off and gone on sabbatical in Spain. And when I came back, and I decided to give it a try, but I was really intimidated. So I went to my local gym and I said, listen, do you have kind of a beginner class? And they actually put me in this class with this guy who was, I don't know, he was in his 50s maybe, and he had a big pot belly, but this guy could stretch. It was unbelievable. And so he was great because he sort of met me where I was and helped me get going. And by the end of the summer and in the end of the year, I was doing the headstands and I was really seeing progress, and I was seeing a lot of improvement in my flexibility and my health and my mental sort of state. But every time in those classes, when we would start the class, they would always say, set an intention. And I always had the same intention. It was momentum, because I felt stuck. I felt like other than my yoga practice, not much was moving forward in my life. And so I would always say momentum, focus on momentum. And that was the word. And I did that for a number of years. And then as all of the things that I was doing in my professional life and personal life started to move forward again from that negative experience, I remember a couple of years later feeling really busy. And I thought, I'm good on momentum now. Actually, I've hit the momentum. Now I just need, serenity or something like that. So I started to think, okay, now you're going a little crazy. Calm down a little bit. And that's what I did. And so just knowing what momentum felt like after not having it made me appreciate it so much more, but also made me realize you have to control it. You can't sort of just let momentum take over without having some sense of what's important to you, because then you get into FOMO territory and indecision and all the problems that we try to combat. FOMO Sapiens, we are predisposed to these potential challenges, so we need to fight them very aggressively from the outset. Okay, so all that's good. I had all my serenity working in my favor. I felt my momentum. Everything was smooth. And then 2020 comes around and all of a sudden, screech, no momentum at all, right? I mean, there was no momentum. There was improvement. There was learning, right? I felt like I learned a lot in the process of being in lockdown and living through a pandemic and figuring out what's important and all the kinds of things that many of us have been doing in the last year. But I just let's face it, you don't leave your house. How can you have momentum? And so that has been something that I think many of us have struggled with. It's sort of like you had all these big plans, right? I remember, of course, you get the old lockdown coming around, and there was some tweet that was out there that said that, don't worry about lockdown because Shakespeare wrote King Lear when he was under quarantine. And so, I guess the rest of us should be writing our magnum opus as well. Well, I don't know anybody who wrote a King Lear while they were in their lockdown. A lot of people watched Succession or watched The Tiger King or Made Some Bread, but there weren't that many people who did truly great things in their quarantine. And that's okay. It is what it is. But as we reemerge into the world and we have the opportunity to regain momentum, this is a huge opportunity. And so as I think about momentum in 2021, and I'll be writing about it and talking about it some, I just want to put it out there the way I think about it, which is this. You've been stuck. You've been in one place. You're going to be able to move again. But when you do that, remember everything you learned. Remember the key things that you learned in 2020. Write them down even. I'm a big believer in that, as you know, and try to keep those core values in your mind as you get going again. So if one of the things you learned last year is you don't need to have 70 million friends, you want to have 10 really good friends, don't try to resume your pre-COVID social life. If you learned that you need to get more sleep and you need to exercise and eat better, again, momentum doesn't mean you throw those things away. And so that's what I'm going to focus on. And I know what's going to happen. We're all going to have these moments where we realize, oh my goodness, I've completely lost control. I remember there was a period this summer when things were really calm in New York and COVID cases were down. And I went to 4 events in one night. And that was normal for me at one point in my life. But I just kind of jumped in a little too far deep into the pool, a little too much momentum. And so that's what I'm going to work on focusing on for 2021. So I would love to hear what you're thinking. What is your word or concept of the year? How are you thinking about re-entry into normal life? Because listen, who knows what it's going to look like, but it will certainly be better than it is right now. It just has to be. With vaccines coming and with the weather getting better, we're going to see rays of hope. So think about that. You can contact me at letsconnect@patrickmcginnis.com. Reach me on Twitter at PJMcGinnis or on Instagram at PatrickJMcGinnis. I love hearing from you. And if there's anything particularly cool or interesting, I will share it here. And your questions are always welcome. We can answer them here on After Hours. Until next week, take care. FOMO. Want more of FOMO Sapiens and After Hours? Head over to FOMOSapiens.com where you can listen to past episodes, learn more about the show, and find out how to advertise. You can also connect with me on Instagram at Patrick J. McGinnis and on Twitter at PJ McGinnis.